Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program, and I'll be sharing with you Chapter 10 from our book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. Chapter 10 is titled, What is Merit? This is a particular type of wholesome Kamma that you can learn about, and you can actually generate this merit to be able to help you move closer and closer to enlightenment. I'm going to help you guys to understand this chapter. If you've read it before class or you're planning to read it afterwards, you've read what is there, and or you will read what is there. But what I'm going to do is share with you guys to help you be able to understand this chapter even more fully. When we start our classes with meditation, so I'm going to do some chanting to ease into the meditation. Then I'm going to come in with some guidance to be able to help you during the meditation. There'll be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating together. Then we'll come out of that with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class. So I'd like to welcome you, whether you're joining for the first time or you're joining regularly, and at the same time invite you to join for our meditation session. You can pull up a meditation cushion or a chair or whatever it is that you like to meditate in. And you're welcome to join along in the chanting, and then I'll come back in with the guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakava Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. All right, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, I'd like to welcome all of you guys here. I'd like to welcome everyone who's joining online as well. This is our group learning program where each Sunday morning at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. I come together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment that the Buddha taught. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any discontent feelings. All the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all of this is eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. This individual who we refer to as the Buddha figured out how to get to this enlightened mental state, and then he spent the rest of his life helping people to be able to understand how to accomplish that same goal. So each Sunday when I come together with students, I do meditation with you guys, but then I share a talk with you guys to help you to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. I do this from our book, which is titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. I go chapter by chapter each Sunday. This is at this point, I've been teaching for 2.5 months in this particular program, but I've been teaching it for many years, and it repeats every 7 months. So it's a 7-month program, and now we're about 2.5 months into that program. And the topic for tonight is chapter 10, which is what is merit. This is a particular type of wholesome Kamma that is generated based on practicing generosity. As I share this particular topic with you, it's important to understand that what the Buddha taught is to help you get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful and joyful. And the underlying cause of what's making the mind so that it's not experiencing permanent peace and joy is something called craving, desire, attachment. When the mind is longing, yearning, and having craving, the mind will tend to hold on to things very tightly. And because of that, it's unwilling to give and share with other people. So the Buddha taught giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return. This actually helps train your mind to let go. In fact, that meditation we just did, that's what that's actually doing too, is when you're focused on the breath and the mind's moving off the breath and you need to let go and come back to the breath, this is training your mind to let go, because the mind in the unenlightened state will hold on, and that's why it's experiencing discontentedness. That if you say your bank account balance is up here and you get really, really happy about that, when it goes down here, your mind will get sad or frustrated because the mind's holding on to this, wanting this to be permanent, when in reality, the world is full of impermanence. Or say like a relationship. If you've been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, maybe when you guys got together, you were really happy and excited about that. But when you broke up, the mind was experiencing anger, sadness, or loneliness, boredom, or maybe you were missing this person. This is the mind holding on and craving permanence. It's not actually love. People think that it's the love that causes one to experience discontent feelings in these kinds of situations, but that's not actually true. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. It's the mind holding on and craving permanence. So the Buddha, during his lifetime, he was born into a royal family. He was a prince destined to become a king. And it's important when you hear about this topic of merit to keep that in mind, that the Buddha was already rich, he was already wealthy, and he walked away from that lifestyle in order to be able to train his mind to get to this enlightened mental state. Because what you're going to hear me share here is that this merit is to be able to give and share, practicing generosity, to see the teachings be able to reach other people, and for people to be able to access the teachings to be able to train their mind. Sometimes if you hear someone teaching about generosity as part of a collection of teachings like this, you might think, oh, that person's trying to enrich themselves. But that's not true, because the Buddha was already rich. He was a prince destined to become a king. But he stepped away from that life. And when people made offerings to him, the only things that he would accept was food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. He didn't accept gold or silver, which was the currency at the time. He also didn't accept land or animals, or sometimes people would offer him servants and slaves. And back then, people even thought of women as property, and they would oftentimes offer him women as wives, or things like this, like their daughters and stuff like that. And the Buddha wouldn't accept those kinds of things. He would only accept things that it took in order to sustain his life, which was food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. So the Buddha taught to practice giving and sharing and practicing generosity with the people around you. And this is going to train your mind to let go. So in order to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to practice generosity with people like your parents, your siblings, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, and people like this, people you don't even know, that you've never met before, where you're giving and sharing more than is strictly required without any expectation of anything in return. Sharing things like your time, effort, energy, and resources. And this trains your mind to let go. But whenever you're practicing generosity in order to help people get access to the teachings of the Buddha, this is what we call merit. So the Buddha taught this generosity, and when you're making offerings or you're practicing generosity, if you ask yourself this question, and the answer is no, that this was not an offering to help a teacher to support the continued sharing of the teachings of the Buddha, to help others to attain enlightenment, then you're experiencing these benefits, that you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment from your mind, and you're generating these wholesome results with progress towards enlightenment because you're eliminating selfishness in the mind. But if the answer is yes, that this is generosity, that you're practicing in order to be able to help others get access to the teachings of the Buddha, well, you're getting these benefits of eliminating craving, desire, attachment from the mind. You're generating wholesome Kamma, or wholesome results, by eliminating selfishness, but you're also helping other people to get access to the teachings. This is what we call merit. What the merit is that by you coming together with somebody who's deeply practicing the teachings, that individual can help you to be able to understand the teachings of what it takes to be able to get to enlightenment. Because when the Buddha taught to practice merit, where you're giving and sharing to help the teachings get access, for people to get access to the teachings, he taught you to look for people who are practicing the teachings closely. If you can imagine, during the lifetime of the Buddha, there were countless people who were practicing, or at least learning with him, but not necessarily practicing the teachings closely. There was kind of like a core group of people who were practicing the teachings very closely. But on the outer edges, there was all these other people who weren't really practicing his teachings very closely, but they were learning with him. So when he taught about making offerings, he taught about making offerings to people who are practicing the teachings very closely. You can see that in his words right here, where he's talking about making offerings to people who are stream enterers, once returners, non-returners, or arahants. This is the 4 stages of enlightenment that he's talking about here. So someone who's in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, they would be practicing the teachings very closely, and they would have deep wisdom about what it takes to be able to get to enlightenment. So he teaches you to look for these types of individuals to be able to make offerings to. But he also knew that early in someone's practice, when they're first learning about the path to enlightenment, they wouldn't necessarily know how to determine whether someone's in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment or not. So there's another teaching that he provides that I don't have here, that he helps you to be able to see that if someone has a muddled mind, that they aren't necessarily practicing his teachings very closely. What a muddled mind is someone who's lacking concentration or focus or clarity. Because what the Buddha did is he figured out these 10 individual pollutions in the mind, and he provides the tools and the techniques of how to uproot those out of the mind. And when you uproot those pollutions out of the mind will perform optimally. You'll notice that there's focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory in the mind, among other benefits that you'll experience as part of training your mind to get to enlightenment. So if someone has a muddled mind, meaning they're lacking concentration, that means they're not practicing the teachings very well, very closely. They haven't learned them very deeply. So therefore, it wouldn't be wise to make offerings to this type of individual. The Buddha taught everything based in discernment or wise decision making, that whenever you make a decision, either wisely or unwisely, it's going to produce a certain result. And that result is what we call Kamma, or some people call it karma. What this means is cause and effect, or action and result. And everything he taught is based in discernment. So whether you're practicing giving and sharing and practicing generosity, it would be wise for you to practice discernment if you're looking to accumulate merit, which is the ability to learn and grow and develop by coming in contact with someone who's actually practicing the teachings very closely. So if you were, say, at a temple, and there was a ordained practitioner who was gambling or using drugs and alcohol or smoking or hitting animals and things like this, or using profanity and things like this, they're not actually practicing the teachings of the Buddha very closely. Because just because you wear white clothes and shave your hair, or just because you wear orange robes and shave your hair, doesn't mean you're practicing the teachings very closely. So the Buddha always taught discernment, that you shouldn't judge other people and look down on them, but it would be wise for you to make decisions about where you would like to be able to support for people to be able to get access to the teachings. So the Buddha taught to be able to practice giving and sharing to be able to accumulate merit, because giving and sharing helps eliminate this craving, desire, attachment, which is the cause of discontentedness in the mind. The Buddha talks about selfishness like a stain in the mind, because it's causing the mind to continue to hold on to things. What the mind will typically do in the unenlightened state is it's kind of like my phone, my computer, my friends, my money, my clothes, my jewelry, mine. And it'll hold on to things very tightly. But then when those things start changing, or you lose them, or things like this, your mind is going to experience painful feelings. So the Buddha teaches giving and sharing to help you train your mind to let go, so that you won't experience those painful feelings. The Buddha's teachings on merit come into play as you're learning and growing and developing on this path, and you're noticing improvement to the condition of your mind in your life, because the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. If you've been exposed to rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer, those aren't the teachings of the Buddha. He never taught any of those kinds of things. He didn't teach belief, because with belief, you don't know which true or false. You're just believing it. Instead, he taught you to learn, examine, and investigate his teachings, to reflect on them, to verify if they're true or false, and then to practice his teachings. And as you're integrating his teachings into your life, you'll see the improvement to the condition of your mind in your life. And as you do so, you'll eliminate more and more of the doubt that you have whether or not his teachings will actually work to help you get closer and closer to this enlightened mental state. And as you're seeing that improvement in your life, that might be a time where you start being interested to help other people get access to the teachings, because you know that these teachings are indeed working to improve the condition of your mind in your life. But the teachings of the Buddha oftentimes have misunderstandings, that not the teachings themselves, but the way that people are implementing them. If you look at the original teachings of the Buddha, there's no misunderstandings there. You can actually directly verify his teachings and practice them to see that they work. But sometimes people are practicing certain things that they think are the teachings of the Buddha, but they're really not. And that's what I'm talking about down here. That sometimes people actually do this little ceremony that when you make an offering to an ordained practitioner or a teacher, they gesture for you to get this little urn of water, and you pour out this little urn of water, and they think that you're transferring the benefit of your merit to somebody else. This isn't actually possible. The Buddha never taught this kind of thing, because the benefit of merit is that it's actually improving your mind, that it's training your mind to let go of craving, desire, attachment. That's the first benefit. And you're not able to transfer that to anybody else. And it's also helping others to get access to the teachings. So you'll find this misunderstanding even here in Thailand. You'll see a lot of people doing that kind of thing. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, there was an individual who asked him about making an offering and how they should do it. And it happened to be a female. So he's talking to a female here, and he's saying that before you make an offering, it would be wise for the mind to be joyful before giving. And then in the act of giving, the mind would be calm and confident. And then after giving, the mind would continue to be joyful. This is to help protect your mind. Because if you've put some thought into any type of offering that you're going to make in order to help other people get access to the teachings, you would be joyful about that offering. And then when you make the offering, your mind would be calm and confident. And then afterwards, your mind would still be joyful. This is protecting your mind, because if you get to the end of your offering and you're like, oh my gosh, I gave so much, I'm not able to afford food for myself. This is not practicing the middle way. Your mind is overextended your generosity here. And maybe you're having remorse at this point. Or maybe you get to the end of your offering, you're like, oh my gosh, I could have gave more. Why am I so selfish? And you're kind of beating yourself up about these kinds of things. But if your mind is joyful before and after giving and calm and confident while giving, then your mind's protected and you're actually making an offering from the middle way, where you're not overextending yourself, not being able to afford the things that you need to in order to be able to sustain your life, but you're also not on the other side where you're selfish and you're never sharing with other people. So the Buddha taught you to practice the middle way, even with something like generosity. And then in terms of the type of person to make an offering to, he talks about someone who's free of craving, anger, and ignorance. This is something that I taught 2 weeks ago in this program. It's called the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. This is a high-level way to talk about the pollutions of the mind. If someone's free of these, that means they're actually enlightened. So the Buddha is saying you can make offerings to enlightened beings, or someone who's practicing for the removal of craving, anger, and ignorance. This is someone who's on their way to enlightenment, to be able to get to that enlightened mental state. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, he was asked at one point to kind of boil his teachings down and explain what you could do on a daily basis to be able to move your mind closer and closer to enlightenment. Because the Buddha's teachings are very deep, very detailed, and very profound. And slowly but surely, over a certain period of time, someone can gradually learn his teachings, implement them into their life, and then see improvement. But as you're doing so, the Buddha was asked, can you just kind of boil this down for us and help us to understand what we can do on a daily basis to be able to move closer and closer to enlightenment? And he describes this teaching that is referred to as the way of practice. He talks about 3 things that you can be doing on a daily basis. One is to practice generosity. The other one is to practice moral conduct, and the other one is to practice meditation. This is something that he taught to do on a daily basis. It's important that your frequency here is more important than the amount. So generosity is giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return. Say, for example, you're going into a store and you notice that someone's behind you. If you hold the door for them, this is your generosity because you're sharing time, effort, energy, and resources. But you need to do this without any expectation of anything in return. If you're standing there with an expectation that they will say thank you when they walk through the door, you'll cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated because you're expecting and craving every single person to walk through this door to say thank you, when the world is full of impermanence and it's just not possible for this to occur. Not everyone that walks through the door is going to say thank you, and your mind needs to be able to be willing to practice generosity without an expectation of even something like a thank you. So if you're noticing you get your clothes out of the washing machine and they're ripped and torn and you're discontent about that, you're angry or frustrated, that's because your mind's craving permanence and wanting that clothing to be permanent, when in reality it is impermanent. So the Buddha would teach you to practice generosity. Give away some of your clothes to someone else, maybe a friend or family member, or maybe to a thrift store or something like this. This is going to help train your mind to let go. Or say when your bank account balance is up here, you're happy, and when it goes down here, you're angry and frustrated. Well, you're going to need to practice generosity with your money because you're holding on to it, craving for it to be permanent. But frequency is more important than the amount. So in this situation, let's just say you're going to give $500 once a month to an orphanage. That wouldn't be nearly as beneficial as if you gave $1 a day, because every single day your mind's having to let go, let go, let go, let go. And this is really helpful for your mind. So you can do this with any number of things that you might be interested to practice generosity with to train your mind to let go. And then you would like to be working on improving your moral conduct. Because in the unenlightened state, there's a certain amount of unwise moral conduct. You might be bitter and harsh and hostile to people, like your parents or your siblings, your life partner, your children, or people like this. And as long as you're being bitter and harsh and hostile, if you put that out, that's what's coming back to you. Oftentimes the mind thinks that it's the other person who's causing you to be bitter and harsh and hostile, but it's actually your own mind that's causing this. And as long as you put out bitterness, harshness, and hostility, it's just going to come back to you. This is the results of your decision. So you can transform this by improving your moral conduct. And the Buddha teaches this as part of a core central teaching called the Eightfold Path. This is something that I taught towards the beginning of this program to help students to be able to understand the full entire path to enlightenment. And then the Buddha teaches to practice meditation on a daily basis. You would like to also practice frequency with your meditation. If it was a matter of one meditation for 30 minutes or two for 15, the 2 for 15 are actually going to be more beneficial than the 1 for 30 minutes. So it's the frequency is really important here. So this is the way of practice. This is what you would be doing on a daily basis, in addition to other things, to be able to gradually build up your practice. But this is a great place to start as you're first starting to progress on the path to enlightenment, is to practice generosity, moral conduct, and meditation. And then this is a teaching that I came across several years ago when I was learning about this topic, and it was impactful to me when I first learned it. So I'll share it with you guys to help you understand this aspect of what the Buddha is teaching. It's called If Beings Knew the Results of Giving and Sharing. He says, monks, if beings knew, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having shared it, if there was someone to share it with. I'm sorry, I actually was looking at something else here. Monks, if beings knew, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would the stain of selfishness obsess them and take root in their minds. Even if it were their last bite, their last mouthful, they would not eat without having shared it, if there was someone to share it with. But because beings do not know, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they eat without having given, and the stain of selfishness obsesses them and takes root in their minds. So what's the results of giving and sharing that the Buddha knows that other people don't know? What he's talking about here is enlightenment. He's basically saying, if beings knew, as I know, that this enlightened mental state is so peaceful and so joyful. And it was generosity that leads to that peaceful and joyful mental state. They would not eat without having shared it if there was someone to share it with. But because beings do not know, as I know, the peace and the joy that is the enlightened mental state, and that it's generosity that leads to that, they eat without having shared it. So one of the things that the unenlightened mind does is it functions very much like an animal. We're not animals, we're human beings. But this path to enlightenment is to become a better and better human being. So oftentimes what an animal will do is hoard its food. And this is sometimes what a human being will do too. In some cultures, you kind of load up your plate and you kind of hoard your food and you're unwilling to share with other people. But it would be wise for you to learn how to share your food. Here in Asia, people tend to put food in the middle and everybody kind of shares their food because oftentimes people are lacking resources. And if you're a family of 4 or 6 or 8 people, you might not have enough resources for everybody to have a full stomach at the end of a meal. But if you put the food in the middle, everybody takes 2 or 3 spoonfuls and put it on their plate, and now you eat those 2 or 3 spoonfuls. And then you take another 2 or 3 spoonfuls and put it on your plate, and you eat that. And now the food gradually goes down. And at the end of this meal, everybody might not be full, but they've all gotten a little bit of food. And this helps train the mind to give and share with others. So it would be wise for you to share your food. Like, for example, if you got a bag of potato chips and you open up this and your friends are around, you might send the bag of potato chips around and see if people would like to share these potato chips. And maybe you get the bag back and there's only 1 potato chip left. Well, you could eat your potato chip and then go get another bag. They're not that expensive. And this will help you to be able to train your mind to give and share. So this is an important aspect of practicing generosity. It wouldn't be merit unless you were sharing it in order to help people get access to the teachings of the Buddha. Here, the Buddha is talking about how the teachings are superior gifts than material things. You can see this if you read this. The Buddha talks about these 2 kinds of gifts. Gifts of material things and gift of the teachings. And he shares about how the gift of the teachings is superior. And that's what you're doing with a practice of merit, is you're helping others get access to the teachings. It's like giving a gift of these teachings. Because if somebody gets to enlightenment, that would be the very best thing that could ever happen for them, because their mind's no longer experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. So that would be the very best gift that anybody could ever get. Unfortunately, you can't give someone enlightenment, but you can give them the opportunity to be able to learn the teachings, and that's the best gift that anybody could ever give. So that's what you're doing when you're practicing merit, is helping people get access to the teachings. You're sharing the teachings, and you're providing assistance with the teachings. Here's the last thing that I'll share on this topic, and then I'll open up to whatever questions you guys might have related to merit. But first, let me explain to you guys what a Brahmin is, because not everybody understands what this is. If you haven't studied this time frame, you might not know what that is. During the lifetime of the Buddha, there were individuals who were born into a certain family. This was about 15% of society. And if you were born into this family, you were considered to be a holy person. You were a Brahmin. And now the rest of the people, 85% of the population, would come to you and request rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. And they thought that if they came to you and they paid you money to do these rituals and ceremonies, that they would go home and their life would get better. People were taught that you can't improve your life by yourself, that you had to go to these Brahmin in order to be able to get help to improve your life. And the Buddha could see that this bred corruption, because people would come, maybe they're having trouble with their family, their husband and wife, or their children, and they would come to the Brahmin and they would say, hey, I need help. And they would say, okay, well, that ceremony is going to be $5. And now they would do that ceremony and the person will go home and their life wasn't getting better. So after 3 weeks or so, they might come back and say, hey, everything's still not going well. It's even getting worse. And now they're like, oh, well, there's another ceremony that I need to do for you. That's going to be $20 to do that one. And now the Buddha understood that that's not the way that the world truly works. In order to improve your relationships, you need to improve your mind, improve your wisdom, and start interacting in your relationships in a wiser way. That's what's going to improve your relationships. So these Brahmin who were doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer, they were also coming to the Buddha to learn about moral conduct and learn about other things as well. So here the Buddha is talking to his students, and he's saying, monks, Brahmins and householders are very helpful to you. They provide you with the requisites of robes, alms food, lodging, and medicines in time of sickness. And you monks are very helpful to Brahmins and householders as you teach them the teachings that are good in the beginning, the middle, and the end, with the correct meaning and wording. And you proclaim the spiritual life in its fulfillment in complete purity. Thus, monks, this spiritual life is lived with mutual support for the purpose of crossing the flood and making a complete end of discontentedness. So the Buddha is talking about this mutual support between the teachers and the students. And this has been going on ever since the lifetime of the Buddha. So everything that you see around you, everything that you're experiencing right now, this is based in generosity and merit. The land that we're sitting on at one time belonged to a Thai person, but they had enough benefit of the teachings of the Buddha, and they donated it to be able to build a temple here. This happened over 500 years ago. And then slowly but surely, people started building these different buildings here in order to be able to help people get access to the teachings. In fact, this classroom that I'm teaching in, I started teaching in this particular classroom in 2002, and it was really run down. It was really old and deteriorating. But our students decided that they were getting enough benefit of the teachings, they were interested in fixing it up so that other people could get access to the teachings. So people started buying projectors and air conditioning and carpets. And at one point, we completely remodeled the whole place. We gutted this entire classroom and rebuilt it from scratch. And that's what you're experiencing right now. It wasn't always like this. At one time, we didn't have air conditioning in here. And during the hot season, like right now, I'd be sitting in here meditating and I could feel the sweat under my clothing rolling down my body. It was so hot in here. Well, now we have air conditioning, which is very rare at a temple, but the students were interested in seeing other people get access to the teachings in a way that they could be comfortable. So everything that you see, this microphone I'm talking on, this computer that I'm using to live stream, the cameras and everything, this is all from generosity from the students being interested to help other people get access to the teachings. And that's merit. And that's what the Buddha taught ever since his lifetime. And what you should see if you're making offerings to a teacher is that that person is using maybe a small portion of that to be able to sustain their life, but then they're offering guidance to be able to help students to be able to get access to teachings through classes, courses, and retreats, that they're not enriching themselves with any type of offerings, but instead they're using those offerings to be able to help them to be able to then provide the teachings to the students to be able to improve their life through learning and growing and developing. So at the end of a talk like this, where I'm talking about merit, one of the things that I like to do is I like to thank students, because there's students who are joining me online. There's people right now who are listening to this maybe as a recording, and maybe there's a certain amount of support that students are offering to be able to help me to be able to share these teachings. And I always like to say thank you for any support that anyone might be offering me. But at the same time, I'd like to make sure that people understand there's never an expectation that someone would offer me support, because I'm here to help people regardless of what they choose in terms of their support for me, that I'm willing to help you to learn, grow, and develop on this path without any expectation of anything in return from anybody. But if someone does choose to support what I'm doing, I'm very appreciative of that, and I have a lot of gratitude for any kind of support that someone might be offering me, because in that way I can help everybody and anybody without any type of expectation of anything in return. I can help anybody who's interested in the teachings. So thank you to anybody who's here or online who might be supporting what I'm doing. I really appreciate your support to be able to share these teachings. So let me stop here and see if there's any questions that you guys have. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or for you guys here, we have the microphones that you guys can ask questions. Feel free to let me know what questions you guys have. So it looks like you have a question, ma'am. It just takes a second for the mic to engage once the lights come on.
Hi, David.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to meet you again.
Yes.
I live in Australia, and I met you last year, maybe 9 months ago. And this time I take my son to Chiang Mai the second time. And I said that you have to, we need to go to the temple to meet David. So I actually, first question is that today we're talking about merit. When you're talking about this topic, actually I was my own thoughts in my life, I think that I really hold lots of things that I don't want to share. For example, I always think I need to reach to another level of wealth that, say, I have much more money, and then I would like to give to others, without any return. Otherwise, as Asian people, we're not used to donate or something like that. And also in speaking of giving my time to others, because I have lots of things in my life and I'm a person quite ambitious. This is another second question I will ask you, but I have lots of goals in my life that I always think that my time is so limited. And if someone, and I run a business myself, and if someone reach out to me and ask, for some consultation, I normally would charge that for money, not, just the free things like what you do. So I'm thinking, what's your thought about, first of all, how to overcome the thoughts that I always think I need to.
The batteries are impermanent.
So what are the things, how can I overcome the thoughts that I need to get to another level of wealth? Say I have, much more money in my bank account that I can start to, help others or give my merit. And the other thing is that, like, my time, I see time much more important than money. That, I seldom, just give my time to others. I will charge it for money because I see it as a business. So what's your thought on that?
So what this is very common in the unenlightened state, that you have craving, desire, attachment. The mind is longing, yearning, and holding on to things tightly. So what you're talking about in terms of being compensated for your time, you're going to need to do that to a certain extent, like in your work and stuff like that. Otherwise, you're not going to have what you need in order to sustain your life. But as you're acquiring that wealth, you would like to be able to share it with other people, and doing that from the middle way. It's not because of your ethnicity or your race. Like you mentioned, Asian people don't tend to share. This is not true. It's not based in your ethnicity or your culture or anything like that. It's based on what's going on in the mind. If the mind has a lot of craving, desire, attachment, you'll be selfish and you'll hold on to things very tightly. But when you can train your mind to not have that selfishness and to develop this generosity, you'll be able to give and share with people around you. But remember, you need to do it from the middle way. And what I suggest that you do is you do smaller amounts, whether it's money or your time or effort or resources. Start with smaller amounts more frequently, to allow your mind to get more comfortable with this. Whereas if you gave $500 to an orphanage once a year, this would be very challenging for the mind. So instead, just do $1 a day or $1 a week or something like this, and just kind of slowly help your mind to be able to let go. And the same thing, whether it's sharing your time or other resources, is just do small amounts in a more frequent basis. And this is going to be more impactful and helpful to your mind, and kind of loosen it up a little bit. And understand that any type of resources that you have in this life, that yes, it's coming from your work and your effort, but there's other people around you that are involved in that you wouldn't be able to acquire those things if it wasn't for the people around you. And you would like to be able to give and share without any expectation of anything in return. So just doing it in small little increments like this will help you to be able to do that. And understanding that it's not your race or ethnicity that's causing you to not share. It's based on what's going on in your mind. And that's what the Buddha is helping you to be able to see here, so that you can transform this and become a more generous person.
Okay, got it. So my second question is that, when I'm the second question is about, how to have, say, I think I'm a person quite ambitious. I have quite some goals in my life that I always want to reach to another level. But, do you think that is a craving or attachment to something, I just don't know whether I can reach enlightenment, this state, and also generate, the wealth or some, materialistic goals, or some, lots of success in my life. Is that something, contradict with each other? Or can I do that, at the same time?
You can do both at the same time, but you need to understand how to do it. First of all, you need to redefine success in your mind. Oftentimes people think that money equals success, but this isn't true, because anybody can walk out into the world and make some money. That doesn't mean success. In order to be successful, you need to have harmonious relationships. That's what determines whether you're successful or not. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of wisdom to be able to get to the point where all your relationships around you are harmonious. And now with your harmonious relationships, you'll be able to build relationships that are helping you to also produce wealth. That shouldn't be your goal in developing your harmonious relationships. But if you're not good at harmonious relationships, you'll find it very difficult to have any kind of wealth. There's plenty of people who are enlightened and wealthy as well. But the difference is that they've acquired their wealth ethically and morally responsibly, and they're not tied to their wealth. So it's not like you're going to become wealthy and then you're going to practice generosity. That's not the way that this works, because if you're not practicing generosity all the way through, then as you're building your wealth and you're selfish and holding on to your money, you'll continue to do that as you get more and more wealthy. So you need to learn how to practice the middle way, where you're practicing generosity all the way through the building of your wealth. And you can have goals and objectives to work towards material objects that it is that you're working to accumulate, whether it's money or houses and cars and things like this. But you need to know how to do that as a true goal. If you have a craving, desire, attachment, you're chasing after these things, and you can only be happy if you get them. And then if you don't get what you want, you're angry or sad or frustrated. That's not a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment. A true goal is something you can gradually work towards, and you can maintain your peace and your joy whether you accomplish this thing or not. So it's not the object itself that determines whether it's a craving, desire, attachment. It's how the mind relates to it, and whether the mind is chasing, and forming its feelings based on whether it gets that or not. That's a craving, desire, attachment. And that's oftentimes what people are doing with money, with cars and houses and things like this. They're chasing, and they're happy if they get it, and they're sad and angry if they don't. It's not the object itself, like the money, that is the craving, desire, attachment. It's the mind longing, yearning for it. But if you were on the other side, where you could care less about your life and what it is that you're doing in your life, you're not going to really be pursuing improvement in your life. So that's why you need to come to the middle way, where you're gradually making wise decisions that is improving your wealth or your material possessions and things that you have, but you're doing that without forming your feelings based on whether you get that particular thing or not. And that's where the training of the mind comes in. But you're going to need more than just what I'm teaching here today. You're going to need the entire Eightfold Path to learn how to gradually train your mind to walk towards goals and objectives without forming your feelings on whether you get that or not.
Yeah, I got it. Actually, my goal, I don't see, accumulating wealth is my goal. I see it as a journey to grow myself, because I see that it's just want to accumulate different life experience. And I see that in the journey that you can, whenever you keep learning and keep growing yourself, and money is just a byproduct from it. So my goal is not just to grow the wealth, it's actually a byproduct. But I sometimes see that I'm a little bit stressed when I see my growth, the speed of my personal growth is not fast enough. So I think that's another craving. It's not craving for money. It's craving for self, realization. And when I see I'm not growing that fast, I will feel a little bit distressed, a little bit stressed.
Yeah, what the mind's going to do in the unenlightened state with this craving, desire, attachment is it's always going to want what it doesn't have. It's kind of like the grass is always greener on the other side. And the mind it isn't content with where it's at. it wants something more. So no matter where you're at, like let's just say you have a expectation or something you want that is here, you'll chase and chase and chase and chase, and you'll have stress and anxiety the whole time, right? Because you're not where you want to be. But let's just say you ultimately make your way up to where you want to be, and you've met that particular objective. Well, if you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, you'll be happy for a period of time, but then you know what's going to happen with your mind? You're going to say, I want more, right? And now you're not happy anymore. You're stressed and have anxiety again, right? Because the mind always wants more. It's like an unquenchable thirst that the mind has. So that's why you need to learn how to train your mind to be able to gradually pursue things. I'm going to work in a question here. I just saw the question. Someone asked me, if I could describe what a true goal is, because this is something that you need to understand, is that there's chasing, and forming your feelings on whether you get that thing or not. That's not a true goal. A true goal is something you can gradually work towards, and you're not basing your feelings on whether you accomplish it or not. You can maintain your peace and your joy regardless of whether you accomplish it. So let's just say I have a certain goal and I'm working my way towards that. Let's just say you would like to have $1 million in the bank. And let's just say you're gradually making your way to it. Well, let's just say you get 80% of your way there. Let's just say you have $800,000 in the bank. You can look at that and be like, well, you know what? I could give myself more time to get this $1 million if that's what you really would like. Or, you know what? Maybe I can add some more resources here. Maybe I can, try to apply some more resources to be able to help me to be able to accomplish my goal. Or, you know what? I'm just fine with the 80%. I'm fine with the 800,000. I can just stay here and I'll be just completely fine. Right? So that's a true goal. It's something that you can maintain your peace, your joy. You can make wise decisions to gradually pursue it. And you're not basing your feelings on whether you accomplish that thing or not. That's not what people are usually doing. Usually people are chasing. And if they get what they want, they're happy. And if they don't get what they want, they're sad or frustrated. And they will call this a goal. But it's actually not a goal. It's a craving, desire, attachment masquerading as a goal. So when I was very young in my early 20s, I used to set goals for myself that I knew that I could not obtain, and it would be impossible for me to obtain it, in order to train my mind to be able to work towards a certain goal and not obtain it and still be able to maintain my peace and my joy. So that's what you need to be able to learn how to do, whether it's financial goals or other goals, is gradually work towards those goals through wise decision making, understanding you're not going to accomplish every single thing that you set out to accomplish, because that would be permanence, and we live in an impermanent world. So if you set something in your mind and it's not a goal, but it's an expectation, you're not going to meet your expectations all the time. It's impossible, because we live in an impermanent world. Same thing with your goals. If you set a goal, you're not going to accomplish your goals all the time. Like, I'll give you an example. I just got back from the USA yesterday. I was teaching there for an entire month, and there was over 20 different events that I was teaching at. Well, the first several events in California, the individual who was hosting me, they were interested in me live streaming the events. So I took with me my cameras and everything to be able to live stream. But based on the situation for the first 3 or 4 events, I wasn't able to live stream. So I went into this situation with the goal of live streaming, with the interest to live stream. I brought all the equipment from Chiang Mai to be able to help me to live stream in California. But when we got there and we started putting everything together, it just wasn't going to work out. So I was like, you know what? It's fine. We don't need to live stream. I'll just teach the class to the live people who are here, and we won't live stream. And then I can maintain my peace and my joy, because I had a goal that I was working towards, but it just didn't work out, and that's okay. Right? But then by the time we got to the 4th or 5th event, we were able to start using the live streaming, right? So you would like to work towards your goals, objectives with wise decisions, but then understand, don't be tied to it, because this thing isn't going to always happen the way that you're maybe interested in it happening. So you would like to have a goal, objective, or interest that you're working towards, not a want or an expectation that your mind's clinging and holding on to and forming your feelings based on.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Another question is that when every time I came to Chiang Mai, I will feel, the the days that I live in Chiang Mai is so calm and so joyful and so, just relaxed and chilled and quite spiritual. That because everywhere you can see the temples and you go inside, do some meditations, life is quite relaxed. And I would just feel, it's like a field. The field is so nice that what makes you calm down. But I'm just thinking that how can I bring this kind of feeling when I go back to Sydney, that go back to the normal routine every day, go to do my work, and I still, have several goals I want to, not to chase, but I need to keep working on that. When life becomes busier, when I'm back, how can say just one practice I can bring back that I can keep this kind of feeling? Because when I go back, I will not every day to see temple, and I will not every day, talking to wise people like you. And, is there some suggestion that you can give me that I can keep myself in this kind of state when I go back to normal life?
If it was only that easy that I could just give you one thing and it would keep you in that state. It's not that easy, right? But it's also not difficult either. So the peace and joy that we're talking about with this enlightened mental state, it's not a feeling. A feeling arises, it changes, and it fades away. That's not what the Buddha is guiding you to be able to get to, because that's temporary. The happiness that you experience now is temporary. While you're here in Chiang Mai, you're happy. But that's based on the condition of Chiang Mai. And Chiang Mai is not permanent, right? Even me, I live here and it's not permanent. I need to travel sometimes and go share these teachings, right? So Chiang Mai is not permanent. So you're going to be in Chiang Mai sometimes. And if you can only be happy when you're here, that's called conditional happiness, that there needs to be some condition met in order for you to experience happiness. And now that happiness arises, it changes and it fades away when you go back to Sydney, right? That's not what you're interested in. That's called conditional pleasant feelings. What you would like to get to is unconditional happiness, unconditional joy, where there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for you to experience that. And you can't do that as long as your mind is not trained. You're going to need to train your mind with the entire Eightfold Path. This is a core central teaching of the Buddha that I share in the books, the videos, the podcasts, the audiobooks, the courses and retreats that I share. You can learn this through a live class like this or through any of the recordings that I've done, because you need to know each individual factor in order to be able to train your mind more and more to get to that enlightened mental state. Because here in Chiang Mai, you're not chasing after your cravings as much as you do when you're back home. When you're back home, you're attending to your house, your job, your relationships, your boss, your all these different things that you're chasing after, right? We're here, it's just like, oh, let's just be on vacation. Let's just be on holiday, right? So that's why here it's a lot easier for you to experience a certain amount of peace and a certain amount of joy. So you're going to need to create the life for yourself if you're going to live in Sydney in a way that you don't have what's called craving, desire, attachment, where you're chasing after things. But you can't do that until you learn the core central teaching of the Buddha. That's what's going to help you to be able to understand how to do that. So the one thing that I can share with you is get this book if you don't already have it. You can download it for free from the website. You can take it and go print it if you like. We have printed versions here that you can reimburse us for, so we can use those funds to buy other books, or you can order it on Amazon. If you get a copy of this and you start to gradually read it and you start attending these classes, that's what's actually going to help you, because even from Sydney, you can attend these classes through our live stream. But that's the one thing that I can share with you is start with this book. But in that book, you're going to learn many things that are going to help you to gradually train your mind, getting closer and closer to the point where you don't have craving, desire, attachment, where you're not chasing. But you're also not on the other side where you're dull and lethargic. You come to the middle where you can gradually pursue your goals and objectives through wise decision making. So you need to learn how to do that and train your mind to be able to do it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, David.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let me see if we have any other questions anywhere. Okay, you have a question, ma'am? Yeah. once the lights come on, yeah, it just, they're Buddhist microphones. You have
My
to be
name's
patient
Jackie.
with them.
I also live in Sydney right now.
Yeah.
This is my first experience with Buddhism and
Okay.
first time in Asia, but I'm really interested in the practices, and I really loved everything you had to share. One thing I stress about is the uncertainty of not knowing where my next paycheck will come from or where my next meal will come from. How do you not let that fear get in the way of your current joy and happiness?
That's the craving, desire, attachment. The mind's longing, yearning, forming its feelings on this particular thing. So it's the same thing with her. You need to learn the entire path. Here, I'll show you guys. I have an image. It's not going to give you what you need to be able to walk away and actually do this, but at least you'll know what I'm talking about. Because I taught this at the beginning of this program, you need to learn each one of these factors. This eightfold path is the core central teaching of the Buddha, and he's going to teach you how to restrain your mind. So like, for example, when the thought of the fear is arising in your mind, this is your mindfulness, your awareness of mind. But what you need to develop is the ability to see the bodily sensations, because there's some bodily sensation that's happening before the mind experiences fear. There's some bodily sensation that's occurring, and you need to be able to see that with your mindfulness or awareness of mind. And when you see that with your awareness of mind, you then apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. Don't allow the mind to experience that fear. But you're not going to be able to do that if you haven't been practicing right concentration, which is the meditation. That's the proactive method to be able to train your mind to see your arising discontentedness, and then to be able to take action to apply right effort and cut it off and let it go within the mind. So all of these 8 factors are working together, and it starts with right view, and then you slowly build up to be able to practice all of this. And I just kind of like real quickly walked you through the mental discipline, but there's a lot more depth here that you're not hearing about. I'm going to be teaching this not this week, but next week. If you guys are going to be around, I have a whole course next week where I'm going to be teaching all the foundational teachings of the Buddha. And if you're not here, you can watch it by live stream, or you can watch one of the recordings to be able to learn it, because it takes me about 2.5 hours to teach this entire path. But as you learn it and you implement it into your life, you're going to see things get better and better and better for you, so that you'll have the tools of what to do to be able to eliminate that fear. Because the idea of needing food in a paycheck, yeah, you need a food in a paycheck. But when you long and yearn for it, that's what's causing the discontentedness. So you need to learn how to restrain the mind and don't allow it to long and yearn, but come to the middle where you can gradually make decisions to acquire those things. But it's one thing to say it and intellectually understand it, but it's a whole nother thing to practice it. And that's what this particular teaching is going to help you to be able to do. Mm-hmm.
The other thought that came up as you were teaching was, I was curious the difference between having an expectation and hope. Say, like you said, it's gratitude, generosity without expectation. So they build this room, they renovate it. They're not expecting anything, but I would imagine they hope it to be used for people to come and for students to come. So how does that factor in?
Hope has a certain amount of expectation in it, or a certain amount of desire, right? So when we renovated this room, we were interested in seeing it improve, and we knew that there would be people that were coming, because there was lots of people coming before the renovation, and then there would be lots of people coming after the renovation. But you don't long and yearn for it. You just understand, like, hey, I'm going to renovate this space. I'm going to make this space nicer. And then if people come and use it, wonderful. And if they don't, then okay, I'm making this offering to be able to create this space for this building to now be better maintained and be able to be better used by people in the future. And whether that's one person, or sometimes we have 80, 100, 80 people here, 100 people here, however many people it is, that's what it is. You don't have an expectation or a hope of how many people it should be. but you just make an offering and you just say, okay, well, I would like to see this room improve. And now I'm doing that without any expectation of anything in return. So for me, I didn't hope that I have students today. I knew that there would be students between online and here. I knew that there would be people studying these teachings, but I didn't have any expectation and I didn't have any hope. I just made a decision that I was going to be here teaching, and if people showed up, I would teach. And if nobody showed up, then I wouldn't teach, right? And that's just a decision that we can make and not base our feelings on whether that occurs or not. Because when I first started teaching at this temple, people didn't know that I was actually teaching. And sometimes I would show up and there was nobody here, right? And I would just go home, right? That's all I would do. But now, all these years later, every single time I'm teaching, there's always people here to be able to learn. But it wasn't always like that. So I needed to make sure that when I was teaching and I was preparing to teach, that I didn't have an expectation and I didn't have a hope that people were here. But instead, I was just making the decision for myself to be available, that if there were people who are interested in learning, I'm here and I'm available. And if there's not people that are interested in learning, okay, that's impermanence. Sometimes there'll be people, sometimes there won't be. And then I'll just go home and I won't be sad or won't be frustrated. I'll just come back another day when there'll be students here. And this is what I've been doing now for many years. And there's just always people here now, but it wasn't always like that. So you would like to get to the point where you're not having that hope for something to occur, because there is a bit of longing, yearning there, and you're going to sabotage your ability to be peaceful and joyful if you allow that to be in the mind. Because sometimes you're going to accomplish what you hope for, and other times you're not because of impermanence, and now you're going to experience painful feelings when you're not getting what you hoped for. So instead, you just make wise decisions towards certain goals and objectives, understanding that they're not always going to be accomplished, but you can make your decisions to work in that direction.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So what I'll do then is just end by thanking all of you guys here, and thank you to everyone online who's joining. If you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you guys to do that. This Wednesday, I'm going to be doing breathing mindfulness meditation with students at 9 a.m. And then I'm going to be sharing just a little bit of the teachings of the Buddha. And then mainly I just open up to questions and answers that students have. And then this weekend coming up, we have a whole host of events like an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha. We have our group learning program, our Pali Canon English study group. On Fridays, we have our social event. And then all next week, I'm going to be teaching as well. You can see these opportunities on our bulletin board over there, or you can look on our website and you'll see them there. And you can also come talk to me and I can help you get plugged in to the resources that you need to be able to start learning and growing and developing on this path. So whatever you guys choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you next time. Sawadee Kap. Sawadee Kap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.